Howdy, folks. Mr. Reardon here. I'd like to walk you through an introduction to syntax, as well as the syntax rules of English and how to build some syntax trees according to the rules that linguists have put together. So, first of all, what is syntax? Well, the official definition that you would get from people who study literature is this, right? The order in which words appear in a sentence. So you have the default English syntax, subject, verb, object, the basic way, the most expected way that words would be put together. But often writers will put words in a specific, thought out and deliberate order in order to achieve some rhetorical effect, in order to make the audience feel a certain way or to try to convince them of something, right? Like the way the words are ordered actually ends up conveying or ends up helping the reader to be more convincing. Excuse me, the speaker to be more convincing. So, continuing here, it's important to think about it this way. It's pretty rare that someone doing rhetorical analysis would write a sentence like, the author uses syntax to do X. People don't really use syntax like that. People don't just say syntax like they might a rhetorical device. The author uses a metaphor in order to blank. With the metaphor, it's valid, but for syntax, that's not really how it works. Instead, you have specific rhetorical choices or decisions that an author is making about, what they want to do in order to be convincing, that are related to the ordering of words, and all of those rhetorical choices have their own names. I'll give you a few examples here. You don't really have to memorize these at this point, but you will learn some of them later. One of them is parallel structure, which you already know, and that is repeating grammatical patterns in a sentence. So organizing things syntactically in a particular way. So injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Pretty good example, one that you've already seen. I think you worked with that in your exercises. There's also antithesis, that is expressing contrasting ideas, often in parallel structure, in the same sentence. So to err is to human, to forgive, or excuse me, to err is human, to forgive is divine. That's a quote from Alexander Pope, right? You can sort of see the idea of, erring being human, being normal, being okay, but to forgive being something that is transcends humanity and is actually divine, is associated with gods. So you have asyndeton, that is the deliberate removal of grammatically necessary conjunctions for effect. So you're not supposed to be able to say in English, I came, I saw, I conquered, like Julius Caesar does. You're supposed to have an and after that second comma. I came, I saw, and I conquered. But it's more emotionally provocative. It's more convincing, if you will, to leave the and out in that sentence, and so the writers have. There's also the opposite of asyndeton, which is polysyndeton. That is adding extra grammatically unnecessary conjunctions that have some kind of effect. That generally it's to evoke an emotion or to emphasize certain ideas. So this is a quote from Maya Angelou. The text that it's in is leaving my brain, but it's definitely by her. Let the white folks have their money and power and segregation and sarcasm and big houses and schools and lawns like carpets and books, and mostly let them have their whiteness, right? There are lots and lots of rhetorical devices out there, rhetorical choices that an author can make. A lot of them have to do with word order or syntax, the deliberate ordering of words, or the deliberate choice of certain words that are certain parts of speech put together in a particular way to be convincing. So what I really want you to get out of this presentation is just to open your mind a little bit and start thinking about language not just as a mechanism for effective communication, and it's just something you use to accomplish other things, but to slow down and pay attention to the way words are ordered on occasion. right? Especially when you're looking really closely at a text. Think about, like, why is the author organizing this particular sentence in a particular way? Or maybe you come across a sentence and you're like, this is really cool, this is interesting, and I'm not sure why. Slow down and think about, like, oh, could it be a syntactical choice that the author has made here that is making this sentence great? Of course, I would like you to be able to use syntax or think about syntax in your own writing as well. So I sort of mentioned this already, but here it is again. Most of the rhetorical devices that use deliberate alt altering of the normal word order, of course, assume that there exists a normal basic word order in English. This normal word order in English comes from our brains. We are programmed to speak and understand language in a particular way because that's how we were born, how we were, or how we were raised. If you were raised speaking English, then subject, verb, object is just expected. The lack of patterns beyond what you hear every day in syntax is also programmed into our brains. And so when there are more rigid patterns or repeated patterns that are not heard every day in some kind of rhetorical act, then that can actually add emphasis and make the rhetorical act more convincing and more effective. I will say that for nearly a century, linguists have been studying how human brains make meaning of words based on their word class that is part of speech. And they've also studied how the order of these words have to be put together and what the rules are for how words have to be put together to make meaningful grammatical sentences in different languages. And the rules are different, right? The rules that you're about to learn for syntax in this presentation are the rules for English. The rules for other languages, for Romance languages, for example, would be totally different. So this is what you're getting today is really the result of many, many years of linguists or people who study the science of language looking at English as it is actually spoken and thinking about how it is that we actually put words together and coming up with general universal rules that apply to English sentences. So I want you to learn these rules. And I want you to be able to implement them by looking at English sentences and thinking about how the sentences actually come together in a syntactically um, uh, effective way or a syntactically valid way that makes them actual grammatical sentences. So I'm going to walk you through all the rules of word order in English. The rules are simplified. They aren't necessarily comprehensive. I've left some of the really complicated linguistic stuff out. I've tried to sort of boil this down into something that I think is appropriate for high school. Please remember as you move forward here, you should be able to answer questions like, how do the parts of this interesting sentence that I've come across in a text fit together to accomplish a purpose when you're faced with some kind of rhetorical act that relies on syntax? You should be aware of the structural nature of your own sentences. You should be able to think about what you're writing in a syntactical way with prompting, right? And again, I want to raise your awareness, right? I want you, my thinking here in teaching you this, even though it might not be something that's covered in exactly this way in many high school English classes, is to help you increase your natural awareness of syntax in English and to help you then, therefore, become a more conscious user of language. It's okay if some of these rules are confusing to you. If you end this presentation like, oh my gosh, that was crazy, I'm not sure I get it, right? Syntax is a lot like math. The first time you hear your teacher go through a complicated math problem, you might not get it. But then you sit down and you try one or two, and then you check your answers in the back of the textbook, and you're like, oh no, I made a mistake. And you go back and you look and you're like, oh, I get it. I see where the mistake was. I need to try that again. And you learn by practicing. The same thing is true of the building of syntax trees. So the more you practice, like in your exercises, the greater your understanding will be. And I think, especially if you're someone who's interested in math and science, you will learn to like building syntax trees. You will find it to be something that's like a relaxing, intriguing academic task, a puzzle, if you will. That's what it feels like after a while. So let's go through the rules here. So a sentence is made up of a noun phrase followed by a verb phrase. That's the rule in English. You can also have a tense word that follows between them. So this is how this is being written. Sentence is made up of, that's what the arrow means, is made up of a noun phrase, a tense word, which is optional. That's what the parentheses mean. Optional tense word and a verb phrase. You have to have a noun phrase and a verb phrase. The tense word is optional in order to have a sentence. That is a requirement. So, some examples. All right. The dog ran out the door. All right. That is, you have a noun phrase, the dog, you have a verb phrase, ran out the door. We'll talk about what constitutes a noun phrase and a verb phrase in the ensuing slides. Here's another example. The dog has run out the door. That one is the has is a tense word. You need that tense word in order to make the present perfect tense in English. So has is there. That's what it looks like. All right. So then we're going to break that down. A noun phrase is then made up of one or zero determiners. So words like the, zero or more adjectives or adjective phrases, one or more nouns, which could be implied pronouns, especially when you're talking about commands, right? Like if you tell someone, run, right? That you're commanding them, you run, but the you is implied in English, and so you don't really need it, but it still counts as a subject or a noun. And then you have one or zero prepositional phrases at the end. Those are allowed. So the you can actually have even more than that, and even more than one or zero prepositional phrases. You could have multiple prepositional phrases, and it would still work. So a noun phrase is made up of determiner, optional, an adjective or adjective phrase, optional, at least one noun, but there could be more. That's what the plus means. One or more, and then prepositional phrase at the end, optional, or multiple prepositional phrases. So I want you to see down here, the adjectives themselves are yellow. When you have an adjective phrase, they're gray. So that's what the difference is here. So look at this sentence here, or this is actually not a whole sentence. It's just a noun phrase. So the fat, ugly family dog with 3 legs. You could say the fat, ugly family dog with 3 legs on the table. And that would also be okay. On the table being a prepositional phrase. So you could have multiple prepositional phrases and it would still be, they could still be part of the noun phrase. All right, so you know what a noun phrase is. Now we need to talk about the prepositional phrase, the PP. So it has to have exactly one preposition, but no more than that. One noun phrase, and that's it. So a prepositional phrase is made up of a preposition and then a noun phrase. So example, the fat, ugly dog with 3 legs. And you can see that. It's the same sentence I had before there. The with is the preposition, and the 3 legs, adjective noun, makes up the noun phrase. If you were to go back, you would see that one adjective and one noun and nothing else would be a totally valid preposition, or a totally valid noun phrase. Look at this one. A skunk in room 219. A determiner, skunk, noun, in, preposition, room 219. Room is a noun, 219 is a noun in this case, so that's a noun phrase. P and P, so then in room 219 is the prepositional phrase. All right. Adverb phrase is made up of 0 or more adverb phrases. So it includes itself. It's recursive, as the computer scientists out there might think about it. There is at least one adverb. So this might be kind of brain bending, but bear with me here. An adverb phrase is made up of an adverb phrase, which is optional, and an adverb. If you have just one adverb, that constitutes an adverb phrase. If you have many adverbs hanging out together, that constitutes all of them but one are an adverb phrase, and then that last one is the adverb that makes the rule work. So the extraordinarily fat family dog is an example. The determiner, extraordinarily, is our adverb phrase, fat family dog. Because it's an adverb phrase, you can see the color coding here. I could have made this pink and it would have been the same. Extraordinarily fat family dog, because there's at least one adverb, it's valid. But look at this one. The very fat family dog. That's totally grammatical in English. I might have made this last very pink to make it even clearer, but I didn't. But you can still see here this all together is an adverb phrase, and also very would constitute an adverb phrase, because you can have one or more of them, and then or zero or more of them, excuse me, and then you have the last one here in the end. Okay. An adjective phrase is made up of the following. You have zero or more adverbs, which is an adverb phrase, with some restrictions. There are some restrictions there. You can have one or more adjectives. Again, there are some restrictions in English. And so it ends up looking like this. Adjective phrase is made up of an optional adverb phrase and one or more adjectives. If you have zero adjectives, it's not an adjective phrase. So again, the same sentence I had before. You can see I made it pink in this one. I hope that's not confusing. The extraordinarily fat family dog could have been maroon, like this one. Same thing. An adverb phrase is made up of an adverb. That's legal. So adverb here, fat is our adjective. So extraordinarily fat is our adverb phrase. Or excuse me, is our adjective phrase. Extraordinarily fat. How about this one? This is a whole sentence. The family dog is fat from its treats. So here, the adjective phrase is just fat. That's it. It's just fat. How about this one? The family dog became very fat from its treats. Again, complete sentence. Fat is our adjective. Very is an adverb. So, and very together could constitute an adjective phrase, because the first very meets the requirements for there being at least one adverb in the adverb phrase, and then the other very is an adverb phrase. So again, fat, adjective, very, adverb, so it meets the criteria for adverb phrase, and then very is together an adverb phrase, which meets this requirement. So that there, very fat, it constitutes an adjective phrase. All right. Ooh, those weren't supposed to come up. Oh well, we'll go through it. So a verb phrase is made up of the following pieces. So you have a verb, you have its object or objects, and then you have an adverb phrase, unless the object is an adjective, and then you can have a prepositional phrase at the end as well. I didn't write that here, but you can have one there at the end as well. That's part of the syntax rules in English. So look here, you have verb, actually look up here first, verb, and then an object, if it's required. You can see it's optional here. That's what the parentheses mean, because some verbs, like intransitive verbs, don't need them. Then you have an optional adverb phrase. Adverbs, of course, the point of them is to modify verbs, and so it would make sense that adverb phrases are optional. They can be sort of in any verb phrase. And then prepositional phrases at the end. often help to give more information about exactly how the verb was done or where the verb was done. And so you can have those at the end, but optional. So the most simple verb phrase is just one intransitive verb. Like in a sentence like, the cat meowed, right? Cat is your noun phrase because a noun can be a noun phrase by definition. And then meowed is an intransitive verb, no object. So that's it. So you have no object, no adverb phrase, no prepositional phrase. It's literally just a verb. Transitive verbs require a noun phrase as their object, which you already know. So B sub T and P, that's a way to get a verb phrase. You can add an adverb phrase if you want. That's optional. I just added that there to make it clear. You could also put an adverb phrase here. You could put an adverb phrase here, and that would be fine. You could put one here, and that would be fine, right? It doesn't matter. It's optional. You can go anywhere. A ditransitive verb, you need two noun phrases. And then for a copular verb, you need to have an adjective or adjective phrase as your object. So some more examples here. The dog runs. Runs doesn't need an object, intransitive verb. The dog eats treats. You could say, the dog eats. And that would be a valid sentence, but then eats would be used intransitively, and it would be this example. But because we put the noun treats here, that's the object of the verb, and it is a transitive verb. Maybe the dog eats treats very slowly, telling you exactly how the eating is happening. That's what the adverb phrase is doing. The dog gave his owner the ball. So we have this verb that just loves to be ditransitive, gave, indirect object, his owner, the thing that was actually given the ball. Two noun phrases. Determiner noun, determiner noun. And then this one, the dog is sick with a virus, right? So I hope I could clarify here. I could say the dog is sick, period. And that would be the most, I think, the most honest rendition of this here copular verb adjective phrase. But I added the prepositional phrase here to help you see how this works. You could also say up here, the dog runs quickly, add an adverb phrase. The dog runs quickly into the house. That would be verb, adverb phrase, prepositional phrase. You could say, the dog eats treats quickly in the bedroom. Prepositional phrase, right? That would be valid as well. So again, these pieces are very modular. You can have some but not others. As long as you have the pieces that are not in parentheses in any of these rules, you're good. Okay. So you know the rules now. Those are the rules. You have all of them. If you know those rules, you can build syntax trees for most English sentences. So if you're thinking right now, God, those were so confusing, I'm not sure I got that, start trying to build some trees. It will probably fall into place for you once you build a few. So here are the steps. First, you identify all the parts of speech, just like you did for parallel structure. Then you should use diagonal branches to bring together the parts of the sentence that the rules allow you to put together under their phrase headings, right? So you can start to look through the sentence and notice like, oh, the verb is here, and this is what's after the verb. So I've definitely got a verb phrase in here somewhere. And you have to think about what kind of verb phrase you have, and then put it together. And your goal in building one of these English syntax trees is to end up with a single sentence without breaking the rules, unless what you have is not a sentence, in which case it's not going to work. So here's an example. The dog runs. Does a determiner, dog noun, runs intransitive verb. The rules say that an intransitive verb by itself, well, actually, you'll notice that my brain, when I do these, I go from right to left, though my examples here on the slide go from left to right. You can go in either order, whichever way works for you. So I happen to know that a determiner and a noun together can be a noun phrase. That is the rule in English. Noun phrase can be made up of one determiner and one noun. That's what the rules say. I also know that an intransitive verb can be a verb phrase. It can be made up of just that and nothing else. Noun phrase, verb phrase with an optional tense word in the middle is literally the definition of a sentence, according to the syntax rules. So no tense word is required. That's optional. It's in parentheses. So therefore, I have successfully built a syntax tree for the sentence "the dog runs." All right, let's keep going. Same rules. Figure out the parts of speech. Use the branches to put together the parts of the rules that are to put together phrases based on the rules. Try to get to a sentence. If you make a mistake, erase and do it again. Celeste is a very fun video game for the computer. So Celeste, noun, is, well, I see video game is the noun there, so I already know that this is probably a transitive verb. So transitive verb, determiner, adverb, adjective, fun, video game, both nouns, or preposition, the determiner, computer, noun. All right, I figured that out. Again, my brain is immediately like, oh, look, PDN on the right-hand side. PDN, I know that together is, DN is a noun phrase. The definition of a prepositional phrase is preposition, noun phrase. So I'm going right to left. That's just my default when I'm doing these. If you want to go left to right, you can, of course. That's how my example is working here. So I know by default, a noun or pronoun by itself can be a noun phrase. So noun phrase. Oh, hey, look, I am starting on the right-hand side. Cool. Determiner noun makes a noun phrase. I know that a preposition followed by a noun phrase is a verb phrase. Or excuse me, is a prepositional phrase. PNP. So now I have a prepositional phrase. This adverb can be an adverb phrase by default. One adverb by itself can be an adverb phrase. That's legal. Adverb phrase plus an adjective can be an adjective phrase. That's legal. That's the definition of an adjective phrase. One or more adverb phrases plus an adjective. Plus one or more adjectives. All right. Determiner plus an adjective phrase plus a noun plus another noun plus a prepositional phrase is a noun phrase. If you go back and look at the rule for noun phrase, like pause and go back and look at it, you're going to see that determiner, adjective phrase, one or more nouns, prepositional phrase is the most expanded version of the rule for a noun phrase. So there it is. All we have left at this point not accounted for is that transitive verb, but you know that a transitive verb's object is a noun phrase, one noun phrase. So there it is. Transitive verb noun phrase makes a verb phrase. The definition of a sentence in English is noun phrase, verb phrase. Noun phrase, verb phrase, sentence. Et voila. All right, that's all I have for you folks. Hope that was helpful. Lots of credit to Meredith Landman, who is a professor of linguistics at Pomona College in Claremont, California, without whose genius I would not have known this content at all, and I would not then be able to pass it on to all of you amazing, talented AP Lang students.